Okay, I can see people starting to join the webinar. That's great. We're going to wait about 45 seconds, get some people in here, make sure everybody can log in, and then we're going to get going. Okay, about 15 seconds and we'll get started. Okay, great. Let's get it started. My name is Michael Egerling. I lead marketing here at Trustero. This is our second GRC leader session. We're going to be doing these about once a month going forward. And we got some really exciting people lined up that we're going to talk to and learn a little bit about what they're doing in GRC and InfoSec. But today we're super excited because we have somebody really cool that we've been talking to for a little while, and we're excited to kind of get him on the record and talk about what he's doing at Wisetail. Ryan Kramer is the Director of Information Security at Wisetail. He's calling into us from near Bozeman, Montana. And Ryan, thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also have Scott Knufer, who's one of my Trustero colleagues here out of Palo Alto. Scott leads operations and go-to-market at the company. Scott, thanks for joining us as well.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Okay, let's get right into it. Actually, no, before I do that, one quick piece of housekeeping for the people that are still joining us and have already joined. There's two options for you to engage with the team here. You can use the chat just by clicking the little chat button in the bottom of your Zoom webinars UX there, and you can also use the QA button. We'll be monitoring both. So if you have questions for Ryan or questions for the team here, we're mostly going to be talking about what Ryan does. So if you have questions for Ryan, you can throw them in the chat. You can also use the QA button, and we will try to get to all of them. And as always, if there's something that we can't get to in time, we'll make sure that we'll respond back out to you. And you'll receive an email version of this later today, and that'll have Ryan's contact information in there, so you can contact him, follow him on LinkedIn. I totally encourage you guys to follow him on LinkedIn after the session today. With that, now let's get rolling. So this is the Ryan Show. So why don't you tell us, Mr. Kramer, about what do you do, where are you in the world, and a little bit about your company as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I like to start off with more personal life stuff. So, I'm a husband, father of two. I got a little boy and a little girl. Um, those are my primary focuses right now. Having young kids definitely takes a lot of effort, a lot of my time, but
Couldn't
it's
agree
been
more.
great. Yeah, it's amazing though. I am in Belgrade, Montana, so that's just outside of Bozeman, Montana. Typically, when I tell people that, the first question I get is, "Oh, have you seen the show Yellowstone? And is Montana just like the show Yellowstone?" To answer that, yeah, it's absolutely like the show Yellowstone. It's spot on.
And Rip, and all
I
those guys as well. Those are your buddies.
Yep, they're 100% right after this call. I gotta go take care of the cattle, and
Yep.
yeah, hope I don't get in trouble for kind of taking a break from work there. But in all seriousness, I am the director of information security here at Wisetail. Um, I've been I think for about the last 2 years, I've been sort of part-time managing our information security initiatives here at Wisetail. I was doing that in tandem with managing the technical support team. And then about January of this year, I was moved over to a full-time role of director of information security. So this has been my primary focus as we continue to progress as an organization. Um, I've held a lot of seats at Wisetail. I actually joined Wisetail about 6 years ago as a client services rep. So I've always been in client facing roles. It's kind of always been my thing. I later moved from that to managing the tech support team, and then from there to director of information security. So It's given me a really good understanding of our clients, how our clients use the platform. I've seen a lot of the operations across the organization, from the tech side of things, the development side of things, to our sales and client facing side of things. And I think it's given me good insight um, just across the organization to help pursue and push our security initiatives.
Yeah, I think we want to talk about that a little bit too, more kind of organically in this conversation, because as we were prepping for this chat, I thought it was super interesting to hear about some of the lessons and some of the kind of the style that you've brought from having a broad experience at the company and what you brought to InfoSec. I thought that was actually pretty cool. I think we'll touch on that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, First, why don't you give us a little bit of background, and for the folks on the line here, tell them a little bit about what Wisetail does. Give us some context before we dig into some of the nitty-gritty stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Wisetail is a tech company. We're actually based out of Bozeman, Montana. Initially started in Bozeman, Montana. We are a learning management, operations, and a content management platform. So primarily, we serve frontline workers in the fitness, retail, the restaurant industries is a really big one for us. Our big mission at Wisetail is to create exceptional learning experiences anytime, anywhere, and I, it's been a great place to work. I think we offer a fantastic platform, and definitely one that gets me out of bed excited every morning.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, well, let's dig into a little bit about what we want to talk about today. So, I think the theme that we really struck on and we got excited about when we were talking with you and prepping for this call was this idea of a culture of security. And we think you have a really interesting way of talking about that and what you're doing there. So, just generally, what does that mean to you? What does culture of security mean to you, and what does it mean at Wisetail?
Yeah, so especially for me, when I think about learning new concepts and learning new things, I have been terrible at just memorizing things and being able to just kind of walk in and truly be able to operate in something from just memorization of concepts. Um, I really need to fully understand and grasp the concept so that I can work maybe more independently. I could be more informed in my decision making. But I think everybody kind of works this way to a degree. I think the policies and procedures, they're great at setting a foundation of the expectations, but I really want to develop, our kind of a culture of security that's really deeply embedded in the values, the behaviors, practices of the entire organization. So what a culture of security means to me is that we aren't just checking a box, but we're really weaving security into the company's mission, vision, and goals. So, really putting security at that tip of the spear, where the organization is set out to, or what the organization is set out to accomplish in a year. That another idea that I was kind of working through was I don't think it works for people to be told that they need to handle security tasks. I think they
Hmm.
need to understand why they need to be handling security tasks and really truly make that personal, so that their actions can have a positive impact on just the overall resilience of the organization.
How do you think how's that going for you at YSL as far as like kind of shifting into that, the more of the why than the what?
I think it's going well. I certainly don't want to be in this position to just tell people what to do all day. I personally like working collaboratively. And so if I have an opportunity to just showcase my passion for this and sort of model the behaviors that are necessary for us to keep moving forward, I think it has a larger impact, and I've seen it have a larger impact on the organization and how um, we think through these things, so that this isn't just we're just checking the box because of security, which is just kind of this vapor word or this make believe thing that people don't actually feel and grasp.
That's that's awesome, Ryan. I your approach and the just that, that goal of getting an individual within Wisetail to understand how important taking security is to protecting the company, I think is refreshing. It kind of leads me into the next question that I think we want to discuss with you, which is, companies focus so much on getting a SOC 2 every year, and that they think this is their way of embracing security. I'm curious what you think of that.
Yeah, I think any, SOC 2, ISO, I think the world of security is really built on trust. And so everybody wants to talk about their attestations, their certifications, they want to sort of set a standard for why should you trust me? But I think where SOC 2 has kind of become the standard, it improving what people say they're doing, that they're actually doing. I don't think it's quite enough. I think it shouldn't be the goal, for one thing. I think the goal is for an organization to be more secure, to understand their risks, to understand how to handle those risks, and to work through those things as a process that works. And I think a process that continually takes iteration. I think that often if you put a SOC 2 framework together and you say, that's it, we check the box, we're good, we're done, the rest of the world is constantly changing and things are popping up and things are rapidly growing, and your threat environment, if you will, is just constantly changing. And so every day, almost daily, you have to keep, cycling through this, reviewing it, looking at what needs to change or how things could be better or different, and really just kind of try to get ahead of that curve. So I believe it's SOC 2 plus some, ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Switching gears a bit, I've enjoyed every conversation that you and I have had since we first met, coming up on almost a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the most important soft skills that you think you've learned as an InfoSec leader?
Communication.
Yeah.
I think communication and being able to tell a story. I think those are the biggest pieces, because again, you can have people just blindly doing things because they were told to do them, or you can have people truly taking that in, and understanding that they have an obligation, or they have a responsibility, I think is a better word. Again, it isn't enough just to say, don't do that. It isn't secure. It isn't secure. You have to be able to communicate it in a way that really meets people where they're at. It touches who they are and what they potentially value or what motivates them. I think that, then I'd probably add another piece to this, that you sort of have to work to understand people and how people operate, how people work, because every one of us comes to the table with something different. Well, I think that's probably the most difficult, or maybe the most challenging piece to all of it, is being able to navigate the different people that you're going to be coming across. But yeah, just being able to motivate people by speaking to what they need. How does this impact me, or how does this benefit me?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little bit of a dig down on that. I think it's
Yeah.
great to, when we talk to people like you, I think something that we get that's really valuable is like, what are one or two of the things that you're like, the actual things that you're doing day to day, week to week in your job to take advantage of that soft skill? So you're a great communicator. It's something you really focus on in your job. What are you actually doing? What are the things you actually do in work? Are you doing like sort of like lunch and learns, all hands? Are you just working through other leadership, other groups? Like, how are you using that literally at your job? What are some things that some people on the phone could take away from you?
Yeah, I mean, to add to it used to be different when everybody was in the office face to face, and I think
Yeah.
for a lot of organizations like us, um, have gone remote, and so now you're communicating through things like Slack, email, Zoom calls like this. I think though still the face to face, even if it's not in person, a face to face conversation like this goes a long ways in really talking through some things. Slack messages, it's so hard to communicate and understand tone. Um, so I try to have some regularly scheduled meetings. I try to have really descriptive Slack messages when I send them, especially company wide. That is, here's what I need, here's why, here's why it's important, and this is what I need. Um, and also just jumping on a call with people, groups of people, or one on one, and just saying, hey, let's talk through this. I'm here to work with you. I'm not here to just say do this. Like I want to actually talk through why this is important. Um, Additionally, and I don't know if this is specific to the question that you asked, um, gaining resources. There's a lot of resources online, and in fact, it might be like Bleeping Computer and some of those. They have all these great articles on security threats and vulnerabilities and all this stuff, but they also have a lot of great articles on just leadership and leadership in this area, and a lot of them talk about communication and skills that you can gather. So I'll use a lot of online resources to better um, prepare to work with different individuals. Read a lot of books. I might not be any surprise. I love like the Jocko Willink extreme ownership stuff. I think that's incredibly important to take ownership in a lead role. Um, Even seeking outside resources, what we're doing in the security world is not that much different. I mean, it's different concepts, it's different work, but the leadership side of it carries over across all kinds of things. And so, um, finding mentors outside of work, people that you could talk to, people that can kind of help guide you through some of the more challenging communication things and kind of grow. Um, and then also being aware of what are the reactions, what are the responses in a room? How could I have changed that? Did I need to explain more? Did I need to explain less? Was it too much? Was it not enough? Constantly dialing that in and improving for the next time. So almost takeaways from the last time that you may have had a meeting or communicated with a particular individual.
I'm going to put you on the spot to do two things for us on the follow-up email that we send out after this. I think
Yeah.
one, you've got to give us your top one, two, or three leadership books that you like. And then I
Okay.
think the stuff that you just rattled off there is the beginning of a really great list, I think. Like what are like because those are some really tangible things that you're doing, like doing your debrief, really kind of writing down what everybody in the room thinks of what you're saying and how the reactions were. I think that'd be a really cool list for like Ryan's top five communication techniques and practical things that you can do to be a strong leader in communication. I think
Yeah,
that would be
absolutely.
you've kind of like tiptoed into the next, like this is a totally set up question that we wanted to talk to you about because I thought it was an interesting thing to bring up. Like when we started having these conversations, we're talking about infosec and GRC, and then you started talking about storytelling. And I remember writing that down because that's like what my background is in marketing. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? Let's talking about storytelling. But it was super interesting the way that you brought it up. Can you give us a little bit of background, like why you think that's important?
Yeah, it's when we had initially talked, it was shortly after I had given a leadership presentation. Wisetail always does these leadership training sessions, and lately we've been having different leaders from different departments actually lead these sessions. I had run across a video by Dr. Jordan Peterson where he talked about leadership, and he talked about it very differently than I had ever thought about it, which was to find your why, to understand your why as a leader, so that you understand where you're going. Because if you understand where you're going, it's going to be easier to help other people understand why you're going there, and be able to tell that story to them. And then it sort of laddered down to helping them understand, helping your direct reports understand their stories as well, and this kind of back and forth. And so that was something that stuck with me as being a really important piece. But it made me think about some other examples that I had in the past with storytelling. I had come across an email, or seen an email come through that I was CC'd on from another CISO at another organization. And it was a chat between the two regarding some situation. And he was explaining how or why something was not good practice or secure practice. But that's not where it was left. It was left with a story about how, or an example about another organization who potentially had a breach or something like that, something that would have been widely available in the news. And he was able to kind of trickle it down to this particular thing that he was asking for, and why that was so impactful to that organization at the time, and why it's important that that they sort of follow suit and do the right thing as well. I think one that I've been using recently is the situation going on with Snowflake right now. We have Snowflake and the Ticketmaster situation. And I think there's so many takeaways from there that can be drawn back to, why are we asking you to do this? Well, here's a perfect example of why this is important and why we need to ensure that we're doing X, Y, and Z. This is why MFA is important, or password rotations, or whatever it might be that could have potentially been a benefit in that scenario. Those kinds of stories stick with people. I think it's more engaging. I think it's more beneficial. It really gives folks the why behind what we're doing.
I think that's great. I think like with my background, hearing that just is like, it's so encouraging to hear that, because if you got to give people details to hold on to. It's the same way if you're trying to remember people's names. If I just try to remember Ryan Kramer, there's nothing, it's not going to stick. If I remember things about you and your life and your family, like, oh yeah, that's Ryan Kramer. I have the details. I have a little bit of the why. This is totally tangential, but this guy that I worked with when I was really young, I worked at a PR agency, and he was a brand new guy. He was like the chief storytelling officer, because you have those at PR agencies. And he came on, and it was a video call. It was like one of the first video calls I ever got on. And there's this guy, and we're all supposed to be very excited about him. And he's just standing there, squared up on the camera, and he's sitting there, and he's eating a banana. And he's like, "Hey," and he starts telling this like really mundane story about who he is and what his background was, and then he just cuts it out, and he's done. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? And then he finishes the banana, and it says, "You'll never forget that." And he was totally right, because like he gave us this wild detail to cling on to, and now he's the banana story guy. On the 1 in a million shot that he's listening to this, that he should reach out and just say hello. It's like that taught me so much about storytelling in work, and what it means to like. That wasn't really a why, but it was a cool detail that kind of helped me remember this guy, remember what he did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Ryan, we've gotten to know each other quite well, actually, over the last few months, and certainly we prepped for this discussion. And what struck me during our prep was how you prioritize what's next for Wisetail from a security standpoint. And I wanted to take a moment to just back up a bit and talk about how you prioritize what you take on next, the things that point you in the direction to say, this is a priority for us from a security standpoint at Wisetail.
Yeah, well, one of the most challenging things for me is it's really important to me, anytime I get into a project, work or non-work related, I really want things to be just right. I want everything to be in its bucket, organized, almost seeking perfection. I want to be able to step back and look at it and go, yes, I'm proud of the work that I did here. Um, there are so many things that we could be doing, or so many things that can be done with security, so many different avenues, so many different angles. And every time something is built or put together, I always am looking for, where's the hole, where's the gap, what's, what do we need to do to change this? Um, that can overwhelm me. I had a manager one time say that done is better than done right. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but I think I maybe fall somewhere in the middle where there are times I need to just say, okay, is this thing getting me closer to our overarching goal? Whether that's an organizational goal or whether that's a goal that I set out for the beginning of the year, or is this thing getting me further from that? If it's getting me further from that, then it's maybe something needs to be backlogged. I need to write it down. I need to maybe circle back on it later, and then I need to go back to the work that's going to get me closer to that overarching goal. So really defining your goals, understanding your threats, understanding the organization, and then really hammering out the things that just need to be taken care of, the things that are going to help people operate more efficiently, um, and communicate better too. And I think this is across the board outside of security. I've seen it in every role I've ever been a part of, that you can continue to do. You can do it perfectly, or you can just continue to keep moving forward and then sort of iterate on those things. It doesn't necessarily explain how I would go about prioritizing, but I think the biggest one is properly communicating risk and sort of weighing those things against the business, what the business needs are, and determining where those things fit in priority, because there's always going to be other priorities and other things, and we have to be able to have a systematic way of measuring those things against each other. What's important, and what can wait, or what can be done later.
Yeah.
So that constant search for perfection is it's tough, but along the way, I think you'll achieve greatness. So
Yeah, I love that about you, man. I absolutely do. Um, One of the things that we talked about early on that just struck me like to the core was when we started to talk about how you compared your work team and what you do at Wisetail with how you think about protecting your family and your home and just your personal life. And I thought it was just so profound as you were talking about your approach. And so I wanted to take a moment to give our listeners a bit around how you think about those two things in parallel.
yeah. Um, you know, funny enough, I'll start out with I was talking to my wife about this last night, and she reminded me that her and I are incredibly different than each other. I think, like most marriages, we are very, very opposite each other. And she kind of laughed because she knows how I am, and typically how I operate. And she does not think that way. She doesn't think the same way. And so we were joking that communication is important between the two of us as well. And it's just a constant thing that I can work on just within my marriage that prepares me for work. And so just to give you a little insight on how I am, and the reason I feel that this role is a perfect fit for me, really has to do with my mindset has always sort of been in this security realm, but more specifically in my personal life from a physical security perspective, or analyzing threat if we go on a road trip, or having kids and understanding what could potentially happen. I'm constantly doing little mini threat assessments and understanding, um, okay, we're going to be gone. What do we need to be thinking about? I should check X, Y, and Z. I should ensure I have X, Y, and Z in my truck. I just need to make sure that if this happens, we're prepared for this happening. Over the years, I've built up a lot of, I'll call it a readiness mindset of, I've got lists all over the house. I've got checklists. I've got lists to ensure that we're packing the right things. But additionally, I've spent a lot of my spare time preparing for things by training jujitsu for self-defense. I've taken medical courses so that I'm at least prepared for an emergency medical situation. Not an EMT, but I'm at least prepared to get somebody out of the wilderness if I need to. Communication's a big deal in Montana. Outside of the reference that we're talking about it in, Montana is, we don't have, there are places that we're going to have dead zones, not have cell service. I'll take a look at that. And I've spent a lot of time assessing that and trying to figure out, okay, if I don't have cell service, what are my backup options in the event that I can't deal with the situation and we need to call for help? I've gone and gotten my ham radio operator's license, and I carry a ham radio in my truck. If I'm in the backcountry, I have satellite communication. So I have redundancy built in because 2 is 1, 1 is none, that kind of thing. It's really important to me. At the end of the day, I just sort of protection mindset has always been really important to me for my family and those that I love. And I've kind of carried that over to Wisetail of, this is a place that I thoroughly enjoy working and am passionate about. And I want to carry that responsibility across to Wisetail as well. Everything's, we're in the cloud. It's technology. It's different, but it's the same. I'm doing the same things that I've already been doing in my personal life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that is,
It's heavy.
That's wise thought right there. And I love it. And thank you for taking the time today to share with us.
Absolutely.
It was great.
Ryan, when you're ready to build the Kramer framework for protection out in the real world, we'll build it, throw it in Trustero, and we'll split the profit with you. Okay.
I think that'd be a great idea. If I had
That's a deal. It's a deal.
Tool,
it's here. It's live.
yep.
Yeah.
If I had a tool other than Excel spreadsheets at home to use for my home planning, that'd be perfect.
Think of the AI audits that you could run, right? Get the AI, making sure that you got redundancy plans built in. Man, this is something. There's something there for sure.
You know, if I ran my family through an audit, I think I'd be kicked out of the house. So
that's a bridge too far. That's
somewhere.
where it ends, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree. I think we probably all feel the same way. I don't think anybody can get away with that. Okay, so I'm gonna put up a little screen here so we can remind people how to get in touch. We're getting close to the end of our time. Just want to remind everybody on the line before we sign up with Ryan, we'll send out an email later today. I'll ask Ryan to kind of list out some of his top 5, some of those items that he covered as far as, like, you know, being a strong communicator and a leader in InfoSec and what that means, some of the things that he does. We'll also send out a link to Ryan on LinkedIn, but I know that you can find him pretty easy on LinkedIn just by searching for Ryan Kramer and Wisetail. He's on there, and he told us earlier he'd love to hear from you guys. And so let's start building that GRC network here. You can reach Scott or myself with our email addresses down below. And if you want to talk to Trustero, we'd love to send you this silly gift that we've been sending out to people, these Ember mugs. I've been literally walking over to the post office to send these to places that are not in the United States. And I'd love to do the same thing for you guys. So if you want to do a demo with Trustero, just scan the QR code there. We'll send you a funny mug that'll keep your coffee warm for days if you really wanted to. With that, Ryan, really appreciate you. This went even better than I had hoped. You definitely appreciate the preparedness and you coming to the table with some really thoughtful and thought-provoking answers to these questions. So thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. Thank you both for allowing me to join. And yeah, this was great. Thank you.
Maybe we'll give you a few months and then we'll get you back on and we'll check in. I think you're gonna become like the banner guest that we ask everybody else to watch the session and see this is how it's done. This is how you really prep and you really provide thoughtful answers.
All right.
All right. Thanks, buddy. I'm going to leave the line on here for a second. Thanks everybody for joining, and go to trustero.com and follow us on LinkedIn if you want to kind of subscribe to these and want us to let you know when the next one's going to be, which will be in about 30 days. Thanks a lot.